everyone. We are so happy to welcome you to the very first Oslo International School TEDx event. This TEDx event was inspired by another similar event that I saw at my last school, where I saw student members and community members coming together to build something incredible where we could be inspired and educated together. At OIS, I found amazing collaborators in my peers and my teachers, and me and Victoria here were able to create such an amazing event. I am so happy to welcome you here to this year's theme, The Butterfly Effect, where small changes and choices can have great consequences.
Today we have a wide range of speakers, and I'm going to introduce the first three speakers we have before the intermission. So first we have Eirik Hansen, as well as Homo Hassan and Kim Evanson. So I would like to introduce our first speaker today, Eirik Hansen.
Some sound. Hey. How are you? Good, yeah, that's good. It's so good to be here, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for organizing this. It's great. My name is Eirik, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the reason why I ended up doing what I'm doing today. And it all started actually in 1978. I was 7 years old. My uncle came home from the United States of America, and he brought me this thing here. My very first computerized toy. It's called Merlin. You can play tic-tac-toe, you can program music and stuff like that, and I was just blown away. This is a real computer. And then, you know, at that point in time, we had no clue where we were going with all that technology. And that's my story, because we didn't know anything. And just a few years after, you know, we had Star Wars. I was really into science fiction, and I was consuming all the science fiction I could find. And I was so much looking forward to, you know, this was in the 1980s. A lot of the science fiction movies, they were about the year 2000. And I was so much looking forward to growing up in cities like this. We were supposed to have houses like that. It's going to be amazing. And then suddenly, finally, year 2000 was here. I remember getting up real early that morning, you know, running out into the living room, looking out of the window. And I was kind of disappointed. You know, the world I live in still looks like this. We have taken over my parents-in-law's house. It's not a futuristic house at all. The closest I got to the future I was dreaming about was that I was one of the first people in Norway buying one of the first electric cars. I saw it online, and I just had to have it. And it was delivered outside my house on a truck. And I got this one. And it's a car that you don't get into, actually you wear it in a sense. And it couldn't fly, and it couldn't do anything. So the world wasn't like I was expecting at all. But what we had no clue about, you know, going back to 1980s, was that we were going to have this thing here in the year 2000. This is a representation of the internet. And just imagine, by the year 2000, we took that for granted. You know, everything around us was suddenly online. We had cell phones and tablets and computers, and our TVs were online, and cars were online, and my watch is online. Everything is online, and we just use it and the closest kind of channel we have. And this has changed, you know, the way that people are, how we are prioritizing stuff. There was a survey done a couple of years ago. They asked 14 to 29-year-olds what they were most afraid of losing in the world. And what do you think they were most afraid of losing in the world? The mobile phone. Yeah. I don't know about you, but have any of you, you know, forgotten your phone back home in the morning, going to work or school? Yeah. What do you do then? Yeah, go back home, right? Yeah. And you might get in a bit late, and you say, "Sorry, I'm late today, but I forgot my phone," and that's probably okay. You know, the second thing that most afraid of losing was the internet, and then further down the list, they started to be afraid of losing physical stuff, like cars, for instance. And that's because we changed that, you know. We created new models for fixing up. We don't have to own anything anymore. It was kind of worrisome, maybe, in this survey that only 43% said they were most afraid of losing their car. But I guess if you have your cell phone and the internet, the rest of that is taken care of. So we are living in extremely fascinating times right now, and never before have we been able to do so many things as we can right now, or we have never had so many challenges. It's obviously our responsibility to do the right thing, to make sure that we understand the technology around us, how we can use that in the right way. And then we need to be in control, but we're not, because everything is going so fast. You all heard about this exponential development, right? That's how fast technology is moving. And have you ever thought about how fast that really is? That's pretty hard to grasp, because people, we are humans, we like to do things that we understand, and we understand linear development. So if I compare linear development with the exponential development, just imagine if I were to take 30 steps. I clicked a bit too fast, so you got the answer already. But if I take 30 steps that way, each step is 1 meter. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, I get 30 meters. You understand that? If I could take exponential steps, that would be quite cool. And the first one is 1 meter, the second would be 2 meters, the third would be 4, and then it doubles every time for 30 times. Then I end up going 26 times around the globe instead. And that's how fast technology is moving. And now the world is changing as well. Because of all this, we see an entire new world around us. And last year there was a big survey done. Forrester Research, they figured out that they saw 40% growth in investment in smart infrastructure. The world around us is getting smarter because of technology. And then 80% of people are now, perceiving the world as digital. Just a few years ago we logged on, now we have to log off instead. And then, there are the World Economic Forum, they did a survey last year, and they figured out that 65% of all 6-year-olds are going to start in jobs that are not invented yet. And that's pretty interesting as well. I mean, if you have a little kid back home and you ask, what are you going to be when you grow up? And they say, I don't know. They're probably right. So the world is changing, and we are doing amazing stuff already. A couple of years ago, and this was because of my little, technology introduction when I was a little kid. I have always been very, very curious about technology. And then a couple of years ago, I entered a survey. I was part of a study where they wondered if you could use implants to monitor your body. And now I'm part of that. And then I ended up, talking to a guy in Sweden. And he sent me to a little piercing studio in Sweden. I've never been to a piercing studio before. I'm pretty, afraid of needles. And I asked the guy, does it hurt? And he didn't say anything. And I just lay there. And then if you're a bit weak-hearted, you have to look away because it ended up like this.
Pust in och pust ut. Fortsätt andas.
Keep on breathing, he says. I was quite pale, and it did hurt. And now I have 4 microchips within my body, and this is part of a project. The first one was to check if it worked. The other one is to put a light bulb in. I can do stuff like this. I can use the printer, I can open my locker, I can pay in a cantina, I can open the door. Now I have one with a light in, and that was to check if I could run a sensor. And now I have one with a sensor as well, a temperature sensor, so I can do my core temperature. And that's part of a survey for the University Hospital in Stockholm to see if we can use these kind of technologies to survey the human body and then to provide healthcare services to people who are not as fortunate as we are to have doctors, around the next corner. And I think that's pretty amazing as well. And now, every year I go to the CES conference in Las Vegas, and I get to try all this cool stuff. And this year, the big hype was, of course, the metaverse and artificial intelligence. And I was able to try this haptic suit on, and I can see a virtual world. And in that virtual world, I met a guy, and because of the glows in the West, I can actually feel the surroundings. I can feel the things around me. So I met a guy, I talked to him, because they used generative AI and some kind of language models. So I could have a natural conversation with that guy. And then suddenly he said, oh, give me a hug. And I gave him a hug, and I could actually feel him touching my back. That was kind of strange. And you can also connect a little device on that so you can smell the surroundings. And now suddenly we have this VR, opportunities. During the pandemic, there was a company in Oslo, they thought it was a pity they couldn't have a Christmas party. So they bought VR goggles to all their employees. They had their Christmas party in VR. And I was invited to do a talk in VR. That was the first time ever. It was just like here. I had to meet up, I was the surprise speaker of the evening, so I had to be there 15 minutes beforehand. And I had to hide, in the back room. And then when everyone was there, I was introduced, I did my talk, and after 15 minutes, it felt, natural as well. And when I was done, two guys came up to me and we started to talk about what I've been talking about. And remember that I was sitting back home, and all of the participants, they were sitting at home as well with VR goggles on. And then suddenly one of them said, oh, there's a free sofa, let's go and have a seat. And we sat down, and it felt so good. We kind of forgot that we had been sitting already. So, and now I have my own office in the metaverse. And I'm trying to, figure out how can we do all this stuff and what can we do with it. And I found this thing on the internet, it's called Next Mind. And it's a thing that you put on the back of your head. And now I calibrated my computer so I can actually control some of simple features on my computer just by looking at it. And that's pretty amazing too. And we are going into one another's head. And then the other day I came across this amazing project here. And this is a cooperation between the San Francisco University and the Berkeley University. And the woman here, she's called Anne, and she had a stroke a couple of years ago, and she lost the ability to speak. And now with AI and sensors and heavy data analytics, they can connect to her speech center in her brain and actually translate what she's thinking. And now she is able to speak again. And that's pretty amazing, just because of technology and the exponential development. So the world is moving forward, and we need to kind of look beyond the obvious, because far too often we are stopping with the first little toy that was not really a big deal, and it couldn't do much other than playing tic-tac-toe. And then suddenly, a couple of years later, we can do this stuff. And I think that's never ever been so important to be a human being as right now. And remember that we have enormous opportunities, and we have big challenges. And it's definitely our responsibility to make the right choices, to do the right things. And then we need to be able to look beyond the obvious, because we are moving into a world that is much more connected and makes it possible to do amazing stuff. So I like to think that because my uncle brought me this, I ended up doing what I'm doing today, traveling around, meeting some of the most advanced technologies in the world, and I'm so fortunate to go around and talk about that and share that knowledge. And my kind of message to all of you is to follow your dream and stay curious. Thank you.